Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Brie. I make bookish content like reading vlogs and other book recommendation videos. So today's video is going to be my January wrap-up, and it's going to be all the books I finished in January. I have one book that I've been reading but I didn't finish, so I'm not going to include it in this because I didn't even get, I got about halfway. Okay, so let's get into the video. So for the first bit of the month, Noah actually picked my TBR. So he picked two books that he picked a total of 3, but I didn't complete one. So I have 2 that I read because he picked it for me. So the first one is Moriarty by Anthony Horowitz. This is the second in the Horowitz's Holmes series. So basically he writes Sherlock Holmes stories that are part of the Conan Doyle Society, has approved him to write these stories. So this one is following a different detective, and he's kind of like Sherlock, but it's after Moriarty has died, there is a new criminal that comes to town, and he is trying to figure out what this criminal is up to and stop it before it gets worse. The first one in this series is called The House of Silk. I enjoyed that one more. It was a little darker than this one, and I just felt like this one just wasn't as strong for me in certain ways. So I think I gave this about 3.5 stars because I just think it had more that it could have done with the story that I didn't feel like it did. At this point in the story, Sherlock Holmes is not in it, so this is following different people, and I think that it didn't need to live up exactly to the Sherlock Holmes stories because of how it's not with Watson or Sherlock, that he didn't need to get those voices just right. But I did feel like The House of Silk, he did a good job with it. So this one, I just think some of it I just felt was a little slow, or just the mystery wasn't as intriguing to me. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my favorite detective mystery of all time. And I also think I should have maybe brushed up on some more classic Sherlock Holmes tales, because I think maybe with all the references that are in here, maybe the story would have been a little better for me, but I haven't read those in a long time, so I think some of that stuff kind of fell through the cracks for me. So yeah, that was the first book I completed in the month. The second book I completed is actually one I've read before, and that's No Matter the Wreckage by Sarah Kay, and these are poems, and she is known for her spoken word poetry, and she and a friend, Phil Kay, go around and they teach spoken word poetry. They'll teach these seminars. So she has a TED Talk, and she also has a decent amount of her spoken word that have been recorded and put up online. So I think she might have another poem book out, but this is the one I had in college. I really enjoyed it. I've reread it a bunch of times. I gave this 5 stars again. I will say I think her poems are more powerful spoken aloud. So while I really enjoy this book, I think that if you do read this, I would highly recommend watching them after, or maybe watching them along, because I just think there's something that you can't get through the page that you can get in her spoken word. But a couple of the ones I really like is there's one called Point B, or just B, and there's one called Hiroshima. Those are kind of her popular ones. Oh, I like the one Brother. It's about her brother. I think that one's really good. Yeah, so they're really good, and I would highly recommend if you are looking for poetry, or you like poetry, if you haven't picked her up, I would just highly recommend. So I gave this 5 stars. So I also was told by Noah to read Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, and I'm still halfway through that. So while I was reading that and just realized I'm kind of not in the mood for epic fantasy right now, I ended up picking up this book, which is The Secret of Whitestone Gate by Julia Noble, and that's the second book in the Black Hollow Lane series. The first one is called The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane. This is a middle grade mystery series where our main character Emmy goes to a boarding school, and at that boarding school secrets start to unfold. There's a secret society that her and her friends Lola and Jack find out about, and they kind of get entangled in this mystery of the secret society, and this is the next one in the installment, so it still kind of deals with parts of the first book, but in a new light. And the first one I gave 4 stars, I believe, and this one I gave 3.5, because it just didn't hold up for me. Even though this one has higher stakes than the first one, I felt like the first one I just connected more with the characters and with the plot itself. This one felt a little rushed and just, it didn't feel as enthralling as the first one. And I will say with this series that I feel like the characters read more like they're 16 when they're only supposed to be, this one they're 13 and the other one they're 12. So they just feel a little older than they are supposed to be in the story. And so that can kind of throw me off a little bit. But I do enjoy this series. I think it's a cute mystery, and if she came out with a third, I would definitely still pick it up. But it just wasn't as good to me as the first one. I'm not disappointed with the mystery because I just think it's a cute setting and it's good friendships and things like that. So there's a lot of strong things to the story. The mystery was a little lacking for me, but I'm also coming from it as an adult reader and not a younger reader. So the next one, which we'll see if this ends up as one of my top books of the year, but was just a book that is completely made for me. There's just books out there that everything they do for someone else might not be a 5-star, but for me just was everything I like in a book. And that is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. So this has been going around on the internet and booktube and stuff about this book, and I was really intrigued, so I had... Kaladin! Do you need to open the laundry room door right now? And a lot of people have given it pretty good reviews, and it just sounded like something I would really like. So this is a friends dynamic. I'm going to keep it a little vague because I think going into these kind of mysteries vague almost helps me with the mysteries because I don't have a lot of expectations for it. But this is friend dynamics basically in college. There was 7 of them. One of the girls is murdered, and this takes place 10 years later, and it's flashing back from present day to back in college when leading up to this murder. And you just know that there's more to the story than what happened, and you're kind of trying to figure out what actually happened and how she died. And I thought that the pacing of like how she flips back and forth from the perspectives or from the timelines, it was done really well. Like I feel like she timed things really well of when to flip back and forth. I felt like every character, you could like feel sympathy for them in some ways, but then you could see like where that stuff could be dangerous. And just the friend dynamic in college, I felt like she really nailed like what college can be like while also giving high stakes. And yeah, I just think everything that was done in this book was just 5 out of 5 for me. I don't have any complaints about it. I will definitely pick up her new book, The Last Housewife, which is supposed to be like a cult setting, I think. And I also like cult dynamics. Friend dynamics or like group dynamics like that in mysteries, and like cult stuff I'm down for it. So I'm like really, really happy I read this. I kept wanting to read it and just kind of put it off, and so this was a great read to start the year and really kind of get me out of a reading slump, because since I wasn't in the mood for the fantasy, like I felt myself getting in a reading slump, and I feel like this just pulled me straight out of it because I loved it so much. Like I have nothing but good things to say. So if you haven't read it, like I would say read it because I loved it. But if friend dynamics aren't your thing, then maybe skip it. But for me, perfect. The last book I haven't finished, but I'm going to be finishing it today. That's like the only thing I'm doing today. So I'm going to include it, and that's The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I am at page 251 out of 404 or something. So I'm about halfway through, and I think unless something really drastically changes that the book goes downhill, it's going to be a 4-star for me. I think this was really well done. It's got like gruesome parts to it where you're kind of like cringing, but it's not also gruesome. But then you're getting this perspective of this housewife and just like feeling unsatisfied with her life, and then she has this book club with her friends that they talk about murder books, and she begins to think that this new guy in town is a vampire. There's a lot, like, it's kind of slower pace in a way, like it's not a ton of action, but I think getting like the stay-at-home mom perspective of like the struggles, but also like they are just like a bunch of white women, so like you getting that perspective versus like these people of color who are in a poor community and they're losing everything, and like now they're having to put trust in these white women who ultimately are probably going to fall short. There's some characters in here that make me want to throw the book and just get so mad at them, and so to me, like, that makes it a 4-star, because if I'm getting that like passionate about disliking a character, you've obviously done something right. I am gonna finish this today, and I just keep thinking about it. Like, I've been having dreams about it the last few days, so I would say that's probably a home run for a book. Again, unless something drastically changes, which I am recording a reading vlog which will be out on Saturday after this goes live, so you can check that out to see my like full thoughts on the book. But I think it's gonna be a 4-star for me, and I'm really happy I read it. Again, this was one I kept wanting to get to, so I'm really happy I did this month, because that leaves the last 2 books as being like really good books to end the month with and get me back into the swing of things. And in February, I'm going to be doing Blackathon, so I have a lot of books that I'm gonna try to read for that. And so like, and I'm doing the mystery thriller horror genre with Bow Ties and Books, and that's gonna be like the mystery thriller horror, so that's what I'm gonna be reading, and I will share more in reading vlogs and things like that. But I think these were like great to get me back into it, because like I've just been in a full-blown mystery thriller horror kick. So with that said, I'm going to end the video here. Those are all the books I read in January. I got to 5 that I finished and a 6th one that I'm halfway through, and that's pretty typical for me. I usually do 4 to 5 books a month, so I'm happy with that. And this year I'm just trying to take it a little slower and not rush myself to be finishing books if I'm not in the mood. And I'm not a big DNFer. I'm not against it. I just tend to just plow through them. But this year I'm kind of like trying to prioritize what I actually want to read, and if something I'm not in the mood for it, doesn't mean that I don't like it. It just means maybe right now I need to put it down. So that's what I did with Eye of the World. And I'm kind of just going to read like a chapter when I feel like it, and then I'll get that done at some point. So I'm happy with everything. I think most of these books were good books for me, and I'm happy I read them, and I can't wait to see what I read next month. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've read any of these, especially these 2, since I love them so much. I would love to hear your thoughts if you've read them. If you can leave a comment down below, and if you haven't subscribed, I'd love it if you subscribed, and we can get to chatting about books. So yeah, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.